The Bucks have found a hidden gem, and following the Bucks drafting prospect AJ Johnson in the first round of last year's draft, a lot of Bucks fans and analysts alike thought that it was a stretch, but following his preseason game against the Lakers, tons of fans are fired up about the prospect of AJ Johnson making the team and being a very big contributor going forward. So break that down and discuss what it could mean for the Bucks as they're finalizing their roster over the coming weeks. Before we get into it, quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. If you're part of the 86% who aren't subscribed to the channel, we're about 100 subs away from 1,000, and that is a goal we've been striving for a while. So if you enjoy Daily Bucks content, this is the place to be. But we have a lot to go over today. Now, obviously, AJ Johnson was, at the time when the Bucks drafted him, seen as a bit of a stretch by a lot of fans, but there was also half of the fan base that saw the potential and saw what AJ Johnson could bring to the Milwaukee Bucks in the future. And following his game against the Los Angeles Lakers, he showed flashes of greatness as a prospect. Now, obviously, he played again yesterday and had a bit of a rough game, and a lot of fans out there now are changing their turn. But I think that at this point, the Milwaukee Bucks are set up very good with, obviously, their team going into the season, but just with the draft pick of AJ Johnson, and even just in the game with the Lakers, I think he showed enough to really prove that he's a very solid pick. We can see this here from Evan. He said, Bucks rookie AJ Johnson is flashing some scoring upside against the Lakers rotation. The former five-star recruit who went the NBL route could factor into the Milwaukee Bucks rotation sooner than expected. Now, this was obviously before the game against the Los Angeles Lakers, where he had a very solid game here. He put up 18 points, 8 assists, 4 boards. So he had a very good game against the Lakers. There's no doubt about it. He was playing alongside a lot of the players that are going to be in the rotation for the Bucks come opening night. And again, they're giving him all the opportunities in the world, especially during the preseason. They're not playing him like with, the second or third string guys and really sheltering him. They're playing him with the starters, the top, 6 players. Obviously, we saw he played with a lot of the starters. He played with Dame a little bit, Giannis. So ultimately, he's going to be a guy that I think they're going to, at least for the rest of the preseason, continue to give opportunities. Because at this point, they're still evaluating what he had. He played in the NBL. He was a late first-round pick. And at the time, it was kind of a high upside pick. It was one of the more risky picks in the draft. There was some players they could have drafted at that pick that would have had a higher floor and kind of know what you're going to get a bit more. But with AJ Johnson, it was kind of a pick where you could either get a very good player or obviously a bit more of a risky pick. But I mean, in the game with the Lakers, and we'll get into the next game in a minute here, but the game against the Lakers, he looked phenomenal, and everybody was talking about it. I mean, I showed you the tweet here. Again, this is from a reporter. He said that he could factor into the Bucks rotation earlier than expected. And you're looking at the Bucks depth chart and how the rotation is looking. There is a world where he could definitely factor into the rotation, but the question mark is, would they rather play him in the G League, let him develop more, or would they want to see him actually potentially get minutes? We've seen it with a lot of different teams, and in this case with the Bucks, there is some veterans on the team. You have DeLon Wright, you have Dame, you have a lot of guys that he can learn from, especially if he's playing kind of going up and down between the G League, which seems like the expectation at this point. But in that brief, he played 22 minutes. He looked very good. And if you actually watch the game, he made some highlight plays. He was great on both ends of the ball. He was flat. He was great. Quite frankly, great. But the problem is, the next game, he went out and kind of had a bit of a rough one. He played 21 minutes, and he had a bit more of a rougher start there. He's still facilitating very well, and that's one part of his game that hasn't really lacked the first couple of games. There's times where there's turnovers. Obviously, there's growing pains with a rookie, but he got a lot of assists in both games, and obviously he's playing alongside some of the other guys. He had back-to-back games now where he's played over 20 minutes, and again, he's getting chances with the guys. He played more than Pat Connaughton. He played more than DeLon Wright. Now, obviously, DeLon Wright is going to be on this team. He earned his spot just by, he's a veteran in the league now. He's going to be on the team, so you don't need to see what he has too much. But for a guy like AJ Johnson, just to be able to play with the starters and really just get some experience in the preseason. This isn't the summer league anymore. This is the preseason. We saw he shined in the summer league as well. He's showing a lot of the same things, albeit toned down a little bit because now he's playing against more NBA caliber players. But at this point, he's playing with the starters. He's playing high level basketball now. And again, it's preseason. We're getting very close to the regular season. So they're clearly having some sort of dilemma between whether they're going to keep him on the team, whether they're going to send him down to the G League, some two-way type things. There's a lot of different ways they can do this. And the biggest thing that we saw from him was obviously, aside from his facilitating, which he showed in both games, was a scoring upside in the first game against the Lakers. Now, it toned down a little bit, and if you watch, he missed a lot of layups in the second game that he easily could have hit. He could have easily had 12, 14 points. And Doc Rivers came out and spoke about this and basically said he's getting to the rim with ease. He just has the finish. And if you watch the game, you could kind of see that he was anticipating contact that wasn't always going to be there. And he was expecting the contact and then going up. And as a result, he was kind of manipulating his shot midair, expecting contact that didn't really happen, which led to a lot of misses. And that happens, especially for young players. You're adjusting to, again, he's coming from the NBL, which is a solid league, but it's nothing compared to the NBA in the sense of the physicality, the defense, especially the rim protection, which is something that at the NBA level you have to be able to adjust to. And especially for a guy like AJ Johnson, who it relies a lot on getting to the rim. And in last night's game, he did that well. He got to the rim well, but he wasn't able to finish. And that's going to lead to some games where he, has duds like he did yesterday, at least from the scoring side of things. And I've seen some reporters come out after his bad game yesterday and basically say he shouldn't be anywhere near a rotation spot for the Bucks team. He shouldn't, have a spot on the team. He's not ready yet. He needs to develop in the G League, all these different things. And to that I say there's a very good chance that's possible. And there's a chance that they're right. But I think you still need to give him more opportunities. And coming off of a great game against the Lakers, his confidence was obviously at an all-time high, and he showed that confidence in the game. He continued to play very well. The problem was some of the shots weren't falling, and as a result, the stat line didn't look great. He looked a little bit uncomfortable, and obviously your confidence will waver a little bit as you continue to play. If you're missing a lot of shots, you're missing a lot of layups, obviously your confidence is going to waver, especially when you're a young player, and he knows he's fighting for a spot, he's fighting for minutes, and I don't think he really expects to factor into the Bucks rotation to the start of the year. I think if injuries happen, his goal is to be the next man up. But again, reports are coming out that he could factor into the Bucks rotation earlier than expected. And if that's the case, again, games like the Lakers game are a big reason of that. And the biggest question mark now is how he bounces back after this game. Still facilitating fairly well. He got to the rim very well. The problem is being able to finish at the rim is going to be the difference maker between him getting 15, 16 points and then putting up a dud 6 points and kind of being inefficient, because ultimately the finishing ability is going to be the big difference for him. You see this article, Johnson could feature in the Bucks plans sooner than we think. Played 22 minutes off the bench. Again, this was against the Lakers, and looked good while pushing the tempo as a facilitator, but he also showed his ability to grab rebounds, finished the game with 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists. There's a lot of different things that have been going on here. Again, he scored 13 points. He had a very solid game. The rebounding was very solid, especially for a guard. The facilitating was very good. And ultimately, there's going to be up and downs with this player, and the biggest question mark going forward will be how he responds in the next preseason game. And again, it's not going to be a huge telltale sign. If he has another bad preseason game, it doesn't mean he's a bad prospect. It doesn't mean anything like that. The biggest thing is how he adjusts to the NBA level, how he's going to continue to play in the preseason, because ultimately, if he continues to just show flashes, he doesn't need to be a contributor right away for the Milwaukee Bucks team. They have plenty of depth in the sense of guards. Now, the depth isn't super deep. We don't know exactly what we're going to get from DeLon Wright, even from guys like Gary Trent Jr., all these different players, third-string point guard. But if he can be a guy who can just come in and just show flashes, then that's all they want, especially from a late first-round pick. And he's already done that. He did that in the Lakers game. I'm not going to be too hard on him. I know a lot of fans out there are. I think he's going to factor into this team sooner than we think as well, especially with DeLon Wright and the way he's been dealing with an injury. He played limited minutes. He's going to have a spot on the team, DeLon Wright. That being said, will AJ Johnson be able to break the team? That's the big question mark going forward, and I think he can. It just might not be to start the season, and it depends how he does for the rest of the preseason and into the G League. Let me know in the comments your thoughts are on this. Have you been impressed with AJ Johnson's start to the preseason so far, specifically in the Lakers game, and then, of course, the next game where he struggled a little bit? Let me know. We'll see you guys soon.